it's weird. I'm sure creators probably know about this. Like when you're creating characters, people out there, authors, filmmakers, all that jazz. There's something weird that happens there where they start to become real almost. It's like their aspects, you're pulling aspects of them from different people, maybe pieces from yourself too. And you're creating these characters and you're creating their voice in your head, you know? And you're like, how do they talk? You know? And initially it's like kind of you guiding it, but eventually it's like they become their own sort of thing. And then you bring the actor involved to kind of interpret that, and then it becomes its whole thing.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Film Goals Podcast. Today I'm with the one and only Joey Charafi. Thank you for being on the podcast, bro. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been doing a lot with your new film that's coming out, but I always like to start a podcast with, the beginning of the journey. Like, how did you start into filmmaking? How did you get into it? Like, what inspired you?
Man, I think watching like Jurassic Park with my mom in the movie theater, I think that was like a really like pivotal moment in my time of like learning what movies even were, right? Because I could just think of like, oh, it's just like, okay, a movie is like, to us, it's like, it's given. It's a given. We know, we're born with it. Usually when we're babies, we're shown movies. So it's like, whatever. But I think there has to come a time when you're like, what is this on a screen? Like, I see it on TV shows. I see it. Is it really happening? Am I looking into a window of it happening? I can replay it. So there's kind of like, I remember me trying to figure out what was going on. And then I remember seeing like behind the scenes. And I remember seeing Steven Spielberg. And to me, he's an inspiration for all this. And the way that I've seen him kind of like be childlike, and the way that he has really fun with a lot of the stuff he does. And, we don't get to see everything and how hard it is. And sometimes you got to be a hard ass. But I really took that as, oh my gosh, that's how they did the dinosaurs. And it really just broke my mind open of like, oh my gosh, that's a puppet. That's a person there. That person really didn't get eaten when he was on the toilet. Like, these are all choices. And then from there, that built it into, okay, he does this. There's different directors that do different movies. Oh, well, what's the difference? And then you start understanding styles. And for me, I was like, this is very interesting. So, So I started doing short films with my cousins, Jason, Luke, Elizabeth, and we have a big family, and we played all of the aunts and uncles in this short film. And then we showed it to our family at like a big gathering, like, it was Christmas or something like that. And we got such a big reaction from it, and it was my cousin who led the charge, Jason. He actually edited everything and put it all together. And I remember him just getting so much praise, and like everybody did, but like it was funny seeing people react to the laughing parts we thought was funny, parts they laughed we didn't mean for it to be funny. And just the reaction of people talking about it. They talked about it for a while. And I thought to myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I need to try and do this. So I did it a couple times with friends, did little short films, and showed them got a family kind of thing together and watched it and kept getting reactions, And sometimes from grown ass adults, grown ass men, they'd be like, yo, that was pretty good, man. that was actually pretty good. Like, you should keep doing that. And that for me, I think that was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And
what steps did you take when you actually did something like more professional or more, I guess, involved?
I went to school. So I went to art school to get my bachelor's degree in science and technology for digital film and video production. So I had learned how to edit because I went to a magnet middle school, actually, because I was zoned for it, K.O. Knudsen. And I went there and learned how to shoot and edit, kind of. And we did like little photojournalism. Like, it was 3 steps that you would go from. I'm trying to remember what the first one was, but the second one was photojournalism. The third one was newscasting. Oh, the first one was TV production. And so they had a studio there, and they had Macs at that point, the colored Macs, if you remember those. Yeah. And she would let us go. It would give us assignments, and we would go and film these, news assignments for the newscast, and learn how to shoot, learn how to edit. And it was really cool. And then I went to college for it. Kind of went away from it a little bit in high school to play sports, and then went to college for it, and then just kind of continued. But I was always kind of doing short films, throughout my life. It was like, it's on my YouTube, to be honest, if you want to go see. There's a few Charafi, just look up Charafi. There's a few different channels, but one of the older ones has like a lot of the older ones, which is pretty interesting to watch. But I just kept going and learning and trying to also emulate at first of like people that I really liked. It was like, how can I make it look like what they're doing with what I have? And it just kind of forced me to kind of get out there and just keep shooting. And from just shooting and getting people, there's a part of like directing. It's like, you got to learn how to talk to people really well. You got to learn how to, like, what is your vision? First of all, sometimes you don't know, right? So you got to go through, depending on actors and the casting and their choices, and you got to learn what is good, what's not. How do you approach good? How do you tell them that's, I don't really like it. So it's kind of one of those delicate things that you have to just keep learning as you perfect. Right. It really should be called practice, right? As you practice filmmaking, because it's like, you could say they're a master, but I think they would even agree that they're always still trying to push the boundaries. They don't know certain things. They're trying, So I would say I started working with major studios out here, and doing office administrative stuff. So getting into PA stuff, like I worked on Chris Columbus's thing that was out here, Percy Jackson. Everybody has like a Vegas scene, or for a TV show, or sometimes a piece of a movie. Jason Bourne was out here for a bit, and I did like stunt driving for that, but it was all like little pieces here and there, and learning, how did the big people do it, right. Failing and trying again, and learning about relationships, learning about reliability. Like, it's like being in the film industry when you're young. What are your priorities? Are you going to stick it through and, like, for this 150 a day job?
Yeah.
And neglect your family or friends or whatever just to do it? Because honestly, working below the line is pretty rough in filmmaking, and that's why I was like, I need to understand. I had to learn what's below the line, what's above the line, and you can learn stuff in art school, but being there in the trenches, one of my bigger pickups was I was an assistant to a producer on a Disney India film called ABCD2, which is out there. You can check it out. And they shot primarily in Vegas. And I learned a lot, honestly, of how to run and gun on a bigger production and what you really need. What's the bare minimum? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot more manageable than I thought. You think you could do it until you're in it. You just don't know, right? Because your mind is just like, oh my gosh, it's Hollywood, or it's whatever, it's Disney. And then you're like, oh, this is okay. I could do this. And then you're juggling all this stuff, and you're learning, and you're making all these connections. And I think from there, I'm like, I know I want to direct, but it's like, I don't know how to get there. So I was always very picky about how I chose what my first movie was going to be. So I've done a lot of shorts. I've done pilots, web series, commercials, music videos, but the first one needed to be something.
And is Vegas Traffic your first one?
Oh, okay. First feature.
So let's back up a little bit. So you went to art school, not film school? Or was it still considered film school?
Yeah.
And was that here in town or?
Actually, it was 3 places. So one spot, it was the Art Institutes.
Oh,
right,
okay.
Right. And so we already know what happened with
they
that.
Went away, right?
They went away, but I'm getting that money back, hopefully.
Right. Yeah.
So they were in Las Vegas originally. That's where I started. Then I went to Denver, right, for family purposes. And I did a couple years in Denver, and then I moved to Hollywood. So it was kind of like a cool little switching around. So, yeah.
Okay. And then when you were in Hollywood, was it just school, or were you trying to get stuff too?
Internship. I actually started my business out there.
Okay.
We were filming amateur surfers that were looking to get picked up by national brands.
Oh, okay.
And so I was mostly located in like Huntington Beach. So I would commute up there, do classes, and then there was stuff you could do online and stuff. So.
Oh, okay. That's cool. And you got your degree from there, or was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, bachelor's in science.
People didn't get it. Yeah. That's interesting. So yeah, so let's talk about I guess kind of the process of you making Vegas Traffic your first feature, and when did that thought spark?
Well, it was definitely on my mind of wanting to do a feature, and the whole idea was like, I'm not going to do a feature until I get a certain amount of money, because my whole idea of doing a feature was the way that like J.J. Abrams did a feature, which is like so weird that like you would hold yourself to somebody else's how they decided to do it. But anyway,
Was that Super 8? Was Super 8 his first movie?
No, it was what was his first? Mission Impossible 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I want it to be a big splash, and I need to have a lot of funds to do that. So I kind of held off on it for a while, and I was like, I'm just going to keep learning, just keep growing, keep, figuring out how I could do everything and figure out how to do better. Mm-hmm. Then eventually I saw a movie called Sound of Freedom, and I was like, man, this is done. This is done pretty well, I think. People sometimes they have problems with it and whatever reasons or acting or whatever. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's a super powerful movie, and I also look at the box office numbers that it did. It did crazy.
Yeah, and it's an independent studio, right?
Independent. Disney had it for a few years. They shelved it. They ended up buying it back. They ended up finding like a wealthy investor who's one of the producers now to buy it back from them so that they can release it. Mm. And so it was delayed for a few years. And so to make a splash that big, it was just like, oh, okay, God's saying something. That's how I felt. I'm a Christian, so I believe that, the selling of children in that is just horrendous. And there's a pandemic of it, and it's like, what more can I do as a filmmaker? But yet make a really interesting movie that's entertaining, but also makes a statement. And helps bring awareness and education.
Okay. And what was your first step after that?
Yeah, I actually was like, what is the movie going to be? So I'm like, okay, I think I got an idea. This is interesting, but what can it be? And like, how's it going to make me interested in it for a couple years? Because that's like, you're going to dedicate a good portion of your time for a feature. So I was like, well, what do I like? What kind of movies do I like? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Training Day, The Raid, like, Jackie Chan type movies or
action
Jet
movies,
Li type movies. You know what I mean? So I'm like, what can I do? I watched Training Day, and it hit me in a different way. It's like, honestly, it was like, I've always loved Training Day, but I watched it again, and I was like, man, this is like a manageable movie. And I actually studied it. I was like, how does this, okay, they're in the car for this, they get out for a moment, but then they're back in the car, and I'm like, these guys are just mostly in a car. And then I'm like, okay, how does this third act go? Okay, so then, don't want to spoil anything. You find out that Denzel's bad, and then he's going to set him up, and then he's giving him
it's
a chance.
Old enough you can spoil.
Right? I was like, if you haven't seen it yet, too soon? And I was like, man, this is interesting. So I was like, I went to the drawing board, and I kind of just kind of let it boil a little bit. And I think for a couple months, I just boiled on a story. And I was like, it's got to be about the characters. So who are my characters? Because that's not them. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other person's thing. What's my characters, right? And so I was just kind of molding on who these people are. And I kind of, it's weird. I'm sure creators probably know about this. Like when you're creating characters, people out there, authors, filmmakers, all that jazz, there's something weird that happens there where they start to become real almost. It's like their aspects, you're pulling aspects of them from different people, maybe pieces from yourself too. And you're creating these characters, and you're creating their voice in your head, and you're like, how do they talk? And initially it's like kind of you guiding it, but eventually it's like they become their own sort of thing. And then you bring the actor involved to kind of interpret that, and then it becomes its whole thing, which is amazing. And I'm so happy, especially with a couple of the characters in the movie, because when you're writing it, you're visualizing it, and then you see it come to fruition. It's like, it's such an amazing, cool thing of creation, of seeing a character come to life is like one of the beauties of life, I would say. You could put that on a shirt, because I mean, God must feel really cool when he's creating these. I get it, because like when you do it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And that person, and they're doing all that. So from there, it was once I had the story, at least a good amount of where to begin, I was like, okay, hand to pen to paper. So it was like handwriting the script.
Oh, wow.
And I took it with me wherever I went pretty much. And I had it on me. Even if I wasn't going to write there, I wanted it to be available so for that when I knew where the next scene was going to be, I could immediately go to it. But I would say primarily I knew the scenes before I started writing. I kind of knew where I was going to go in a map, but then I just didn't know certain things. You know what I mean? I kind of knew a beginning, a middle, and an end kind of, and then I'm filling the rest in. And then also from there, you're kind of like, you're making turns too. You're like, oh my gosh, that's even better. And so that took about a month.
Okay, well,
to
that's
be
fast.
honest. I know it was. And honestly, I know that not all of them come that way. And I'm super honored for that. And so I don't take that for granted. But a couple months of boiling the idea.
Right.
A month to the paper. And then probably a couple weeks of translating that to the script on computer. From there, I'm getting attached to my top producers who I want to help me push this forward, which in this case was Trenton Briscoe, starting. And then we brought in Kevin Sanders, which I know that you've had on here, right?
No, we were on a podcast together.
You were on a podcast
He hasn't been on
together.
here yet, but
Okay.
yeah.
So then, and then we brought on Kevin, and from there, we kind of figured out casting and the fight sequences because we knew that it was going to be very fight sequence oriented. We didn't want to shy away from that or pretend like we weren't something else. We wanted to lean into it. So we wanted to make sure we had the right team for stuff like that because that's very physically demanding and schedulally it's demanding too. When you're doing fight choreography, you have to get together beforehand multiple times, especially if you want it to be good. Unless you're choreographing it on set that day.
Yeah.
Which did happen a couple times. And I
So-
don't suggest that.
Yeah. So you told me you also did like the camera work for the film.
Yes.
So you were wearing so many hats. How did you handle that, bro? Like,
Scheduling.
Yeah.
And also it was 42 days of shooting
filming now.
over 8 months.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I approached it instead of J.J. Abrams' way. I did it Christopher Nolan's way, which honestly is probably I don't know. I'm going to leave that out there. We did Christopher Nolan's way and we did it over a span of multiple months so that it gave us time because we had people who had jobs.
Yeah.
Right. We all had things. So instead of pushing it out in 1 month and just everyone gunning in, we had a little bit of time. And so there's some challenges that come with that, but there's also some benefits to that as well. And during it, we're editing it and we're marketing the movie. So we're getting the buzz going, right? So for bigger scenes that we know are coming down the line that we need more people for, we're building the cool pre-trailers and stuff of the cool stuff we've shot to get people excited because they're like, oh, I see what you're shooting already. I want to be involved.
Yeah.
And so we
Smart.
build hype for it, right?
Yeah.
And so from that regard, we kind of build and figure out who the cast is, do everything with the contract stuff, make sure everybody's on the up and up and everything, and then figure out who's SAG, and then figure out where we fall under SAG, and then negotiate with them. And then pretty much it's like working on locations, wardrobe, breaking the script down. That's kind of like the first thing is that we break it all down and figure out what we're going to need practically. How many shooting days, the locations, and you do as best you can, obviously, right? Especially because it's 8 months.
Yeah.
So things were we had things fell through, but we got even better things. Honestly, it was like we had, I feel like a blessing. I feel like God's hand was on us. And because when we would do something, we'd be like, it wasn't meant to be, but I bet you something else is going to come up. And it did.
And you think having that time helped? So you're not rushing I got to get a location by tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, let's be real. If we didn't have to do it that way, we would shoot it probably normally.
Okay.
But this definitely as an independent filmmaker,
Right.
If you want to do a feature and it really means something to you, that's the thing that you're going to find out. And that's why my choice was very deliberate. It was this needs to mean something. I can't do killer clowns from Pizza Land in Mars, whatever. Just an example of something stupid that's just aimless to try to make money.
Right.
It needs to have a meaning. It has to have good character moments too. I've said this before, but I agree with Denis Villeneuve is I'm making this movie for one audience member, myself. And I want to bring people on for the ride, but I'm also making the choices because it's like I'm making a movie that
You want to make?
I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
For sure.
being able to do that though, you get to make all the choices. The thing is you got to have the skill.
Yeah.
You got like I'm directing, I'm writing, I'm producing, which is a whole other thing if you don't know what producing is. Like it sounds like, oh, it's producers do this. There's music producers, there's other like film producing is a whole different thing. I'm editing, sound design. God.
Yeah.
It's like,
feel
you know
you on
what I mean?
that.
It's like, dude. So, but in that regard, you got a lot of control in it. So
Yeah.
it's either like it's good or it's bad. It's kind of a lot on you.
Yeah, it falls on you,
know
yeah.
what I mean? There's no hiding behind anything.
Have you done sound design before?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah. I've done some stuff for like commercial stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I did. I ended up doing sound design for my first time for this last project that I did, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Dude, it's
such a
epic.
pain in the ass.
It's epic, but you can see how much it just in the experience of like, you know, getting people to sit like in a theater with amazing sound and just the effect that it has, just like it almost like focuses them in. You know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I've seen it like in marketing meetings with one that has, you know, really good sound design, one that doesn't, even though it's like visually really good, but the sound design of the other one, they're talking about that one more.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that? What is
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, and like I did all like Foley and all that stuff, and it's a process.
Yeah.
So where are you now with the film? I know you had a couple premieres, and you're kind of like marketing. So just tell us about where you're at now and what your plan is with the film.
Yeah. So we are in the festival stages.
Okay.
So we're putting into the biggest festivals in the world and see where we're at. So hopefully this time next year, we'll be invited to Sundance
Okay, awesome.
and some other pretty acclaimed ones. There's some big ones coming up. So we're hopefully to get some answers here pretty soon. But yeah, we're in the process. There's a book. So I'm always, you know, marketing that. There is also, we're doing like a few, you know, interviews about the charity that we're starting called Stop the Traffic Foundation. And so we're going to be actually screening the movie and hopefully with other movies that matter, kind of under the Movies That Matter banner, other movies that make statements that are strong towards humanity, you know, and activist purposes, where we're going to be taking that to just different cities and bringing other educational professionals from that area and law enforcement from that area to raise awareness and throw awareness events. Firstly, starting about child trafficking. That's the first one. That's the kind of the main, because Vegas traffic is pretty much about, you know, it's like an anti.
Yeah. So we didn't. Did we say what the plot of the movie was? Do you want to say it?
No, I don't think we talked about it.
Okay.
Two cops in Vegas. They're kind of like a odd pairing. They have to work together to find this little girl who's been kidnapped. And down this sinister path they go, their clues lead them to opening up this giant child trafficking ring run by occult practitioners. So they, you know, have to go through all these crazy scenarios and kick some butt and kind of figure out who they are in the process.
Yeah.
And who each other are.
Well, we'll be on the lookout for that. So I know you got like probably another year with this project. Are you thinking about the next one yet or no?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
You want to say anything about it?
Got a few projects that we're working on. Yeah, I would say, okay, so one we're working on is called The Dark Maze. And that's an ancient horror movie.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of along the lines of feeling like From Hell, if you've ever seen that with Johnny Depp. Hughes
I don't think
Brothers
I've
movie.
seen it, but I know what movie it is.
Really good movie.
Okay.
He's trying to find Jack the Ripper, period piece. And the other one is like 300. So it's kind of like From Hell meets 300. The Dark Maze. So that's a good one. We're writing the script for that one. Me and Trent are paired up again on that one. And then working on Samoa. So Samoa is really exciting. This is live action. These are all live action, and I'm looking to do a really cool feature that spans 3 timelines of Samoan culture in close to historical way, but dramatized. Thinking like Yellowstone vibe meets Game of Thrones, right? Span through 3 timelines. And this could eventually spin off to a series that would lead a little bit longer, but I want to focus on the feature.
Okay.
And so that one's really exciting. I've kind of released little tidbits of like just concept art that I've made.
I think I saw your Samoa title on your Instagram.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll throw little things out there that just they're not really official just yet, but that's what's cooking, And I like to kind of throw little things. I'm really excited about that one to be actually. And then I've got another one that I'm working with another friend of mine is a Jetsons live action series.
Okay.
That is kind of to the tune of Lost in Space kind of meets Fallout kind of.
Okay.
Ish.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Some interesting topics, bro. So what I do like is that even though you're like working on these big projects, you're still doing like other things. Like you did the 48-hour, you did the 49-hour, and the Desert Waves Film Festival. Like how do you like find the time, bro?
That's a good question, man. Honestly, that was a really brutal time in my schedule last fall. I knew I really wanted to do it. It was so fun. I hadn't had a lot of time to do it. I joined a team last year, and I was like, I really want to be a lead in it.
Yeah,
because it is fun. And just during that time, it was so crazy because we had just crazy events going on, and so I had to kind of like figure out how to make everything work. But it was cool. It was a cool experience. I really appreciated Desert Waves Film Festival. They were just gems, and 48 was really cool as well too. Learned a lot of awesome things from just observing other cool projects.
Other films. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, thank you for being on the podcast, man. I appreciate it. Keep on the lookout for Vegas Traffic. You're gonna submit to Nevada film festivals.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so people in Nevada can go. In Vegas can go watch them.
Yeah, Cordello is what we're looking at.
Okay,
is that how you say it? Because I always say that.
Cordillera or something like that. Yeah, the one in Reno. Yeah,
that's like the main one. And then I just want to thank the Nevada Film Office for always helping and always being supportive. Danette Toll, Jeremy over at Got Films, honestly came through for us in a big way. And it was a huge thing. And that also, the book is also available on Amazon if you ever want to check it out, Vegas Traffic, the novel.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to leave his info below. You can check him out, Instagram and all that. And see you next time. Peace.